way to give is to find a charity that does the good you see as particularly special. In my case, I did charity work for almost any church that asked. I did a lot of YMCA stuff, as you are aware, and then the local food banks and so on, and community services. And I did that, in effect, not because of maybe some special inspiration, but I do remember that as a kid, I'm from a very large family. I have 6 brothers and 2 sisters. And we were by no means wealthy. And I do know that as children, the YMCA played an important part in helping us become good citizens. You know, just basic Christian values, how to be a good person, you know, follow the golden rule even, just simple stuff. And it was that concept that I still support, and my way to support it now is by giving them services or donations, and I'm still a big believer in that.
Very nice. You have had financial success, able to sell your business, retire. So could you tell me and those listening, in your mind, what are a couple, let's say 3 keys to what has been successful for you and your family financially over these many years?
Well, I've had a couple of kind of things foremost in my mind over the years as I've kind of worked toward where we are now. I first off never spend more than I can earn. I don't like to buy anything, almost anything that I can't pay for out of pocket.
Okay.
It just seems to make sense to me.
Did you live I'm sorry to interrupt, but did you live a no-debt lifestyle, or were you just very careful and discriminating about using debt?
No, I was careful and discriminating. Now, you have to have debt to make things work. You know, it's foolish to think that you should buy your first house debt-free, because by the time you've saved that money, you've lost any advantage you've had.
Fair
so
point.
Things like that, of course. But I was careful not to do things that I felt were indulgent. And it sounds silly, like, for instance, buy a new car. I could certainly afford a new car.
Yes.
I don't buy new cars. There's no logic in it in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
A used car does the job perfectly well after someone has used up all that depreciation
yeah.
that was given to the company that made the car. I'm happy with that.
Okay.
Things like that.
So, classic American attitude, live beneath your means, be very careful about debt, which is another way of saying have the money available to pay for purchases. And what else would you add has been a money rule or key to your success over time?
Well, in my business, the key to my success was to understand we're a service business. I firmly believed that in almost no case, there were maybe 2 exceptions in my 30 years, your client is never wrong. Okay. Even if they're wrong, they're never wrong. Mm-hmm. That as a service organization, when your client needs service, it's the foremost issue. You do your best to serve them as well as you can, and you don't worry about the money. The money takes care of itself if you take care of your clients. That philosophy kept me in business.
And where did you learn that philosophy? Did you grow up in an entrepreneurial family? You mentioned it was a large family. Is it something you learned in school, or was it similar to what you described before, that just in the early working years as you observed what was happening around you, different business models and the like, that it's just a posture you adopted?
Kind of. I had a couple of really good lessons growing up in business. Dumb as it sounds. One was when I was a paper boy.
Okay.
I learned that as a paper boy, you're the only one who looks out for you. Mm-hmm. We had a paper drive, and in the drive, the newspaper said, if you get up to so many customers, we have some gifts for you. And there were things like a new bag to carry your papers in.
Okay.
Very cool stuff, of course. So instead of charging like $11 for the bag to carry their papers, they were going to give it to you. Gee, that was wonderful.
It seemed important at
Seemed
12,
important,
right?
yeah. I was 10 at the time, actually. We had a paper route because we passed it between us, so I could get one before I was 12. But I'm delivering papers, and I was delivering maybe 80 papers, but I went up to 120 papers after getting new customers. So I get to 120 papers, and suddenly I was making no money. Now, before you were making, and this is a long time ago, but you were making like maybe 30 cents a customer. That's horrible. I mean, that's a super grind. 6 days a week, 30 cents maybe, and that's if you got a tip, which was hard to come by in those days. I delivered in the wrong end of town, tough to get a tip. So you look at that and you think, that doesn't make any sense. But now I'm up to 120 customers. I'm literally losing money. So I called the newspaper and said to the director of circulation, I said, geez, I've expanded the paper to 100, but of these new customers, almost 80% of them aren't paying me. And he said, boy, he said, Joe, he says, you got to do better on that. You got to. I said, I'm knocking on the doors literally every day I go by. I hit them on the way out and on the way back.
Yeah.
And I said, they're there sometimes. They won't even answer the door. He said, well, he says, we're glad you got up to 120 papers, but he said, you have to do the collecting. I said, well, you're selling 120 papers. How about until I get paid, you cover the cost of these papers? He goes, well, we really can't do that. And then I learned who looks out for Joe.
Right.
That was my first real lesson in who looks out for Joe. So the next week, I fired 40 customers, and the newspaper had a fit.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, if you're willing to pick up the cost of those customers, I'll put them back on the list and I'll deliver those papers.
Wow.
And they said no. And I said, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I delivered to 80 customers, and I made the regular amount of money, and I enjoyed it a lot more. And that was my first lesson.
That is a great lesson.
Yeah.
And there are lots of adults and business owners and even owners and people that run very large businesses that haven't figured out that more is not necessarily better, that it's the bottom line and being smart about it. And, I think, I'm Italian, and I think, and this is probably in other cultures too, is, there's the joke about, my Uncle Vinny sold suits, and he lost money every suit, but, he committed himself to increasing the volume to make it up.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
And so you see that an awful lot, and businesses will work with clients that are not profitable and even expand the relationship with that client that's not profitable, but they do it at their own detriment. So
Absolutely.
If you pick that up at 10, 11, 12 with the newspaper route, that's pretty good stuff. I wish we could talk more about that because I had a lot of formative experiences delivering newspapers as a young kid in New York City, and I'm going to show my age now at, say, 46, is that I think it's sad that my kids and other kids don't deliver papers, because I think it was one of those awesome ways to learn about business and life and people and the independence that gave.
Absolutely.
And I always had money in my pocket when I was 12, 14, 15. I was essentially rich. I always had my own money.
Exactly.
And it's sad that you don't see that.
Yeah, you got to
anymore.
write your own checks, doing your own banking. It was pretty cool.
So these stories are great, and you built the business. It's tough for younger individuals today because they're in a different world. It's different regulation-wise, tax-wise. You have social media, technology. But there are some principles that I think stand the test of time. Any advice you would have for younger entrepreneurs who are just getting started like you did some 30 years ago?
I would say the smartest thing to remember is the money you often get as an entrepreneur, especially a young entrepreneur, is not all yours. And by that I mean, when you look at how much you take in, especially a young entrepreneur might forget the other side of what he takes in. So you go out and your dad gives you a lawnmower and you start mowing lawns. And you're happy as heck that your time is getting paid for and you're making money, but you forget that your mower's going to burn out on you. And when it burns out, your dad normally is not going to say, let me just go get you another one. You should have saved money to buy your next mower.
Okay.
And those are things I think that young entrepreneurs don't understand. So when you get your first paycheck for doing your first job, you can't look at that as your money. It's got to be, some of it might be my money. Some of it, if in a real entrepreneur situation, some of it must be the government's money.
Yeah.
And that's often forgotten.
I've picked up on that myself.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. And then some of it's the future money to make sure you don't die when things get slow or, you know.
Do you have an opinion? We've kicked this around here at Elliott Wealth Management because we have folks at different age, different age, parts of different generations. So increasingly we've been talking about what's your opinion, if you have any, about millennials. They take a lot of criticism, if you will, in some ways, and I kind of have a contra opinion, but do you look back and fearful about this generation of entrepreneurs, that they're not going to be successful like your generation was and the generation before you were?
Not at all. One of my sons is a millennial.
Okay.
And if I look at him, I wish I was the businessman he is.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. It's and there are many like him. Many of his classmates. And you can look at the negative and the one who's, got done with high school and didn't do anything and is maybe just struggling for what am I going to do next, or went to college and said, oh, that didn't really work out and changed 4 times and still can't find a job. Yeah, there's a lot of that. But there's also the real heroes out there who are very young, who see that some of their colleagues not making it is an opportunity for them to do more and make more. And
the competition's not moving. So if I get going, I'm going to win and win big.
My son got married in Colorado, and he had 6 of his college classmates there. And wow, I mean, talk about rock stars. It was incredibly impressive to see these people, kids who just about turned 30. Running projects worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
That's awesome.
Hundreds of millions of dollars.
Good.
30. And these are your millennials. So when people tell you these millennials are all slugs, I think that's pretty selfish.
That's my experience too. So final question. You mentioned about discipline, new cars, living beneath your means. We've also talked that you've had success, that you're retiring on a good... you're in good shape, right?
With a real base.
So is there anything that you splurge on?
I don't splurge regularly on almost anything. I bought a Porsche. That was a splurge, honestly.
That is a splurge. It is a beautiful car.
It's a beautiful car.
All right, that counts.
But it's fun. It's just something for fun.
Awesome.
So
thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Hopefully the listeners enjoyed it as much as I did. So this Everyday American series with Joe Eddy was excellent. I will be back with you in an upcoming episode of Simply Financial sometime soon. In the meantime, please pass this podcast along to friends and family. We'd love the recommendation. You could subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, and other platforms for podcasts. You can also find the episode and other information about me and the team at Elliott Wealth Management Services at our website, www.elliottwealth.com. That's 2 L's and 2 T's, elliottwealth.com. Thank you. I'll be with you again soon.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of SagePoint Financial Incorporated and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. No strategy can assure a profit nor protect against a loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. The information being provided is strictly as a courtesy. When you link to any of the websites provided here, you are leaving this website. We make no representation as to the completeness or accuracy of information provided at those websites, nor is the company liable for any direct or indirect technical or system issues or any consequences arising out of your access to or your use of third-party technologies, websites, information, and programs made available through this website. When you access one of those websites, you